We're going to use the black 528. We're going to use the white acrylic. We're going to use this as a mica flake. We're going to use that. Then we're going to use this can of webbing spray. This is a 4-ounce bottle. I'm going to put 2 ounces in there into 16 ounces. You can put almost any color in the 528. It does a real nice job with the super stains as well.
Okay.
I don't really mix a lot of acrylics in there, but...
and why is that?
Well, because an acrylic already has its own body. So when you have just water like we're going to do here, we're going to add the acrylic to it. But the acrylic already has a carrier, so to speak. This becomes the carrier for the black, because the dispersion color is just a pigment. All right, so anyway, we've got that color mixed up. This is 12 ounces of just water. And as you guys already know, maybe you don't, the acrylics can be put on straight or they can be diluted with water. In this case, we've got 12 ounces of water, and we're going to add half this bottle, so 2 ounces.
And what are the pros and cons of using it straight or mixing it up?
It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you were to just take this and paint it on there, it's going to be a painted, very completely covered background. If I water it down a bit, it becomes more translucent the more you water it down. And we're going to spray this into this actually after we put that on there. So now I know you guys use the metal illusion primer on another one, which you could accomplish the same thing. It would dye it black, but you can see that this is much thinner than that.
And so how long does this take to dry once you have it on?
This is going to be probably 5 to 10 minutes maybe. It dries very quickly. So, and again, it's because it's very thin. And it's a urethane, so the carrier of this is actually a urethane. All right, so we've let that dry. It's been 5 to 10 minutes, whatever. And then we're going to put a second coat of that on. This is where you're going to see the difference in the 528 versus anything else that you've seen before, because it'll create a pattern of black to it. So we're going to come in and we're just going to spray the edges so you can see that if you didn't get it all done first time, you'd probably be okay in the second one. And then we're looking at kind of getting a thin layer of it standing on that. See how it's creating some surface tension?
Okay.
That's what we're after in this, because it gives you kind of a patterned black, right? And then this is the white acrylic that we mixed up, and we're just going to kind of put in some veins of that. And I'm going to do this a couple times. I'm going to let it dry up a little bit because it'll start turning into a gray sort of a look over the wet black. And we'll keep doing this as it dries. So we're going to just let that sit for a couple of minutes. And we're going to add more white over the top. So I'm going to come in and kind of just add some veins in the middle of that. You can see that that's not changing to gray because it's pretty much set up. Come in and do that, and then I'm going to change this to a little bit more of a sprinkle, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that. And then I'm going to just add just a little bit more of that over that yet. Just to give it something real interesting. See how that kind of just melts into that. And then, while this coat's wet, we're going to go ahead and sprinkle some of this mica flake on there. And the idea is we don't want to throw a big pile of it, because if we do, then you've got multiple layers of it, and it'll be twisted up and things like that. And then when we put the epoxy on, you may end up with some of it sticking up. So we're going to get it stuck into this wet background, and then we're going to sand it off a little bit just to knock off any of the parts picking up, and we should be able to get it with one coat of epoxy. But I'm just going to come in and just scatter some of this. I'm going to go ahead and put some of this in. Now this is going to leave more of a distinct white vein in it. It's almost like a silly string. So I'm going to just...
And are you spraying the same direction, or just?
Yeah, I'm kind of. It's hard to control, but I'm trying to get it to go kind of sort of the direction of the veins and kind of come off from it. So that's it there. Now we just have to let that dry, and it's a little thicker, so it's probably going to be 20 to 30 minutes till it's dry, and then we'll just knock off. You can see this part here where I've got a couple of pieces over the top of each other.
Okay.
We'll pick those out and sand it off a little bit, and then we'll put the epoxy on.
Okay. like take it off?
No, that stuff gets hard as a rock. All right, so this is all dry now, and I've been over just pushing stuff down, making sure we don't have anything poking up. There's one right there. That'd look like a little bubble. We don't want that. So I think we're good. It's all dry. Already got the epoxy mixed up, and we're just gonna pour that on.
That really does make it pop.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just pops, yeah. And most of the time, this particular look, if you can get enough epoxy on there, and that's one of the reasons I go thick with it, is because I want to be able to bury all those pieces of mica that we put in there in one shot. If you had a little tiny piece sticking up or whatever, over a little bit of time it would wear out anyway and you just wouldn't see it anymore. But we try to avoid that if we can. So that does a couple of things. It kind of tones down the white a little bit. So it looks, before it was like, wow, that's really white, like these lines. But that tones it down a little bit and just gives you a really nice effect. Make sure we get all the edges. I like to make sure I brush it on the edges, and then I will come in and put it right on the edge like that, and then brush it out, because when you do that, it keeps running over the top and keeps that edge nice and thick. Go over it just real quick like that, and we'll let it sit for another 5 or 6 minutes, do it again, and maybe one more time before we go. But
and you don't worry about torching the edges?
I don't need to worry about that, and that's going to continue to run down over the edge over time. So then, the next day, of course, we take those bumps off, but you don't need to worry about torching the edge.
Cool.